Uh, Hi Neil, thanks for helping my project.
Good morning.
So you were just asking me about what got me started on this project, and basically back in 2019, we had Artemis Day over there at the McCold facility. Where they had like the core booster, and there is this associate administrator um, who was in charge of making sure we made the 2024 deadline, and he had a lapel pin that was counting down the days to the end of 2024.
Okay.
He was going to go around to NASA and select a person to be like the Artemis hero of the day. And I was like, well, wouldn't it be cool to do that with like ordinary people? So I thought I'd create this project, and I was working from home for 2 years at that time. And I thought this would be a project to get me out of the house. Of course, 3 months later, COVID struck. So getting out of the house didn't really work out.
No, not for anyone.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what got me started. But I was wondering if you could say a little bit about yourself.
Well, I live in the area, which is in part of Galveston County in Santa Fe, Texas, which is not far from Johnson Space Center. So I've always kind of been in the shadow of NASA and the space program. So it's kind of always been in the culture, I guess. I kind of always running in the background. I always knew someone who worked there, or knew someone who knew someone who worked there. And where I'm at now, my wife actually is a contractor for NASA, so it's still a part of my life as far as that facility goes. And then as a kid, being I'm almost 50, so as a kid, with the beginning of the shuttle program, space flight was a big part of, was always in the news, was again part of our culture. What our older cousins or friends were remember going to the moon. Our parents remember seeing it on TV, so it was still very, very fresh when I was growing up. And then unfortunately it kind of it eased off. It wasn't that touchstone wasn't there anymore through, I guess, the late 80s, and definitely the late 90s, and through the early part of the 2000s. So I'm excited to see it come back into the fold, and have folks like yourself re-up that excitement of going back.
Yeah. And it is really exciting, I think, for us to be going back. But it's only exciting if you know about it. And I'm kind of curious, when did you find out that we were going back to the moon?
Oh, probably immediately. But I mean, one of the things that I kind of keep up with is space flight, and everything from what our government is doing, what NASA is doing, what the private companies are doing. Even I don't know as much as I'd like about what India or maybe China is doing, but definitely on what we're doing, I just find it mildly fascinating. So I keep I keep an eye on it. So in fact, before I just gone on with you this morning, I was just trying to see how they were doing out at Kennedy with, it looks like they put a hold on the clock and not able to finish the wet dress rehearsal this morning out there. So just seeing, just always kind of kept up with it. I've always been captured by the idea of being on a rocket and going to space.
Yeah, the wet dress rehearsal, I've been meaning to take a look at that. I know yesterday I had some issues with like some fans and
Yeah, it
some
looked like they were
ventilation.
able to pressurize. It looked like the clock held at 6:30 this morning, and I haven't been able to see why. It hasn't moved since then, but it's
Hmm.
it's stuck there. So I don't know what's happening. They're supposed to do a press conference, but you know how that goes.
Well, Uh, Hopefully they'll figure something out and they could proceed. That would be
Uh,
ideal.
yes, it would be.
But what's your sense on how well it's known that we're going back to the moon?
Hmm. I think, the pop culturally, it's it's there, but not well known. I don't think it's being discussed. It's not certainly not the topic of parties or sitting around the dinner table. When friends get together. Um, I, I think if you ask somebody, "Hey, did you know?" They'll probably say, "Sure," but maybe because they just assumed that we're going to do it. I mean, that was always the promise, right? Of mankind going back again. And I think people would be surprised if you told them that we're just now putting plans in place to do it for real. I think maybe the expectation was that it was always going to be in place. So I think maybe, especially in American culture, since we first went, it's been part of the software, I guess, for lack of a better word, that and that we would go. But it most certainly is not as a big a topic as I'd like to see it, for sure.
Well, I have done a lot of the interviews with random people on the street. In fact, I remember doing some at the park right there on was the Bay Area Boulevard right there at the Clear Lake,
Mhm.
and some at a restaurant here in League City. And in both cases, the person had no idea that we were going back to the moon, and this is like in close proximity to the Johnson Space Center.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, I guess, but well, I think NASA in general, since right after the early day, maybe even since the 80s, has not done what it could on the communication side, to the public. It's definitely not in the zeitgeist. And um, I don't know an easy answer for that, and I'm sure they're doing the best they can with what they have. But I would definitely like to see more of an engagement on the pop culture side for them to let folks know what's going on. But uh, you're competing with trying to get folks' attention as they're watching TikTok or whatever. So it's kind of hard to get into some folks' bubble, I guess.
It is for sure. But what do you think about us going back to the moon?
I'm excited. I'm all for it. I think it's twofold. One, I think we need to go on the scientific side to understand what it is, uh, how it affects literally affects Earth. Help us understand where the planet came from, how it formed, how the moon itself formed. I mean, there's lots of unanswered questions still about how it looked like we had a pretty good handle on it. I think maybe with the leading theory of maybe it being part of the Earth after another planetary object hit us. Now there may some questions about that to have to reopen that discussion. So I want to learn more about the moon as an object itself, but also would like to see us go back to bring the excitement back for us, to give us you know something to aspire to rekindle the imagination of the kids, to show them that we can do really big things, really cool things, and collaborate. Would love to see other flags on that moon, and other patches on the arms from other countries, and be able to show the younger generation that despite what's happening literally now in Europe with the war, and we don't have to fight. we can get together and do things, big things, and we don't have to be. We've just been kind of we've been small for a few decades, and I'd like to be big again.
I know it doesn't seem like we have big dreams. I was watching this show Apollo 10 and a half. I don't know if you've seen it. It just came out on Netflix.
I haven't seen it. It's Linkletter's project, correct? Yeah.
I I'm not sure. I know one of the producers. His name is Mike. His last name skips me right now, but I had interviewed him in 2020 for this project. So
Wow.
I was really interested to see it for that. But it kind of goes back to the 1960s and touches on kind of like the big dreams and I, I mean that's when we like developed the Astrodome, Astroworld.
Right. Right.
We were going to the moon. We had all these thoughts about creating sort of a better world, and you really don't. I mean, just get. I mean, I don't see us having much of a sense of, what's our pyramids and cathedrals of this age.
Exactly. No, that's, yeah, you said it better than I did. I would, so that would definitely be on the plus side. And it kind of, even the pop culture part, or the folks we were talking about earlier, where's in the 60s and 70s, people had dreams of flying cars, and the space age, and the promise of a great future, and all of that came from us going to the moon. That's what that was, the kernel, that was the spark in people's imagination that got them to imagine a better future. And I think that'll help once we go back. That'll get the juices flowing again. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Talking about going again, if it was safe and affordable, would you take a trip to space?
Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
100%.
and how far would you go? Just like one of these little
No,
suborbital rides,
no,
or?
as far as they would let me, as far as I could go, I would go, and I would stay as long as until they kick me out.
So Elon Musk is talking about building a million-person city on Mars by 2050. Would you see yourself as a denizen of that city?
I say no, because I'll be too old, you know. I would like to go to Mars as long as it was a two-way trip. I don't really want to be one of the first. There's plenty of people who will, and they're standing in line for that, and God bless them. But I don't want it to be one way for me. I'd like to go and come back. And I think by the time it happens, um, I'll be on the wrong age. But I sure hope the generation below me, and definitely two generations below me, will have that opportunity. But yeah, I would go. If low Earth orbit ends up being a tourist destination like Disney World, I'll definitely save my money and go.
Now, Elon Musk has talked about many times about how they need to get the ships back to Earth for the next trip, and so that if you wanted to come back, you could. So he's definitely not proposing one-way trips. So uh,
Yeah. Well, then, yeah, once he gets the all the wrinkles ironed out, and if I could afford it, I would. You know, I'm don't really know. I mean, that's a good length of time you would have to be gone, but if everything pans out, why not? That would be great.
and it might be psychologically important for people to think of it as a tour of duty as opposed to a permanent state. Might be easier for them to handle some of the hardships. You know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Again, I know NASA sits on a lot of data on what the men and women have gone through, the men that went to the moon and back, and the men and women that have been on the space station. Pardon me, for a long time. It was including the one we just got back. He was there for like 350 something days, I think, almost. So I don't know if they're going to share that, psychologically, what those folks had to go through, or what they've done to help them overcome those challenges. But that is a huge consideration that maybe a lot of people don't consider.
Yeah, you have to pick really stable people that work well with each other over very unstable times.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, um, well, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
I don't think so.
Well, Neil, I really appreciate your time, and thanks for being a part of my project. And yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Good luck. This has been great. It was my pleasure, and I look forward to seeing when you have it all done and completed, to go back and kind of review all of your stories. That'll be fun.
Definitely. Okay. Well, take care.
Yes, sir. Be good.
Bye bye.